So I'm Shahar, I'm VP Product and Strategy here at EverAfter, and we are here to talk today about practical strategies to empower your digital onboarding programs. So before we will start with the actual content of the webinar, I would first like to welcome and introduce Tara and Doug. And if you can start by introducing yourselves, or Tara, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Tara Myles. I'm a director of customer success at Zendesk. My career has spanned from Series A startups all the way up into big tech like Zendesk. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of application of all of these best practices across the board there. So I'm excited to chat about it today. Thank you.
Hey, Doug.
Awesome. So I'm Doug Norton. I head up our customer success teams for APAR at Bill.com. Started out in Big Four consulting in the early 2000s, where tech was the big thing. It was a great start, really focusing in on post-sales strategies and growth. But I got my first foray into customer success while with Dell. We were selling enterprise data center software. And then more recently transitioned into Bill, where we work with a lot of SMBs. So seeing kind of both ends of the tail there. Fun fact about me, moved 14 times, spent time in Silicon Valley, London, Boston, Austin, Texas, and now Utah.
Wow, that's so if anyone needs recommendations, maybe they could reach out to you.
We can have lots of chats about moving tips.
Cool. All right, thank you. So just before we start, for those of you who are not familiar with EverAfter, so we help you scale customer success by digitizing your different customer programs. And hey, I did this from our marketing team. So yeah, thank you. You can see that we have really great customers that leverage EverAfter to productize and build many of their digital touch points with EverAfter. So Frontify is one of them, that they were able to actually create a customer-led experience that leads to a really nice transparency and collaboration and actionability from their customers. And similar with Salesforce, that with EverAfter, they were able to actually digitize the onboarding experience and save up to 10 hours for the customers by switching to EverAfter. And just from the concept of customer programs, so there are many types of customer programs that you can leverage for the onboarding phase, for the post-onboarding, for the sales efforts, and also for customer marketing. And there's like a really nice asset that you can download here. It gives you a full blown explanation of any one of the programs that we're here to focus on. But today, and especially in today's webinar, we're actually going to focus on the different programs and different strategies that you can leverage on the onboarding phase. And this is a very hot topic, I think, since ever. And with technology and with the mindset of how we could actually digitize the experience, so I'm sure that Tara and I can share a lot of their expertise together with us. So, I mean, onboarding is something that we do on our day-to-day and in work and in our personal life as well. So let's start, if you can share with us, what is the best onboarding flow that you've experienced in the real world, in your work life, and why?
Sure, I'll go first.
Start? Yeah.
I'm very, very forward here, guys. Yeah, I think that the best onboarding experiences are personalized and foundationally about best practices, both within the industry that you're serving and within your solution. So really a curated kind of choose your own adventure type of experience where, I'm able to personalize what I'm doing with the solution that I'm onboarding to what my needs are, to what I bought it for. And make sure that is supported by best practices. Sometimes we don't know everything that we could know. So having that great onboarding process is part of it. And an example of that, I think, is a recent New Year's resolution that I started with an app called Finch. It's a self-care app. There are many different ways that you would onboard to it and reasons why you would do it. And it takes the why and the what, and it just kind of walks you through onboarding. So you're setting up everything that you need to achieve the nuance that you have and the needs that you have with the solution, while also being educated along the way, so that you're not kind of going, information overload. You're really setting it up for success based on your own needs and the best practices that they already know from the hundreds and thousands and millions of customers that they've got. What about you, Doug?
I love that. I think personalization is huge. And so when I think about this, I think there's a lot that we can learn from the B2C space, and especially when we're talking about digital-led onboarding, because frankly, B2C businesses have had to grapple with long tails since forever. And so as we think about the best onboarding programs, a couple come to my mind, both in the outdoors space. So I love getting outside. One of them is because I'm into road cycling. So if anybody's into road cycling, you probably heard of Canyon bicycles. They're a direct-to-consumer model for selling bikes, which can be great if you're a little bit savvy, but also can be a little bit scary if you're not. In terms of, because when the bike arrives, it's in a box and you have to do some assembly. Well, when I ordered my first Canyon, I was a little nervous. This was my first time buying a direct-to-consumer bike, as opposed to just going to a shop and making sure it was perfect right out the door. They did an incredible job. The packaging was perfect, lots of padding. There was even a small gift with tools and stickers. So it just felt special, right? From day one, as soon as that package arrived. And I think, when I think about onboarding, you want your customers to feel like they're having a special moment and they're being treated well. They also had a QR code. They did have a manual, but there was a QR code that you could just click on, take you right to a video where they walked you through step by step exactly how to do the assembly. So it took all those nerves and anxieties that I had about, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to mess up my bike after this big investment? They took all that away because they just made it so easy. And lastly, I did have to do a brake adjustment. So after I did the assembly, the brakes were rubbing a little bit. And if you're on a road bike, you don't want your brakes rubbing while you're riding. It's going to slow you down. And so I contacted them. Their support was incredible. And so, obviously we design everything hoping that things go perfectly, but they don't always. And I think part of onboarding is being able to catch those situations when customers do raise their hand. In my experience, customers are more likely to raise their hand in those first early days of their experience with a product, because that's when they're really struggling through the learning curve or through the early problems. And if they can get through that, a lot of the rest of it is smooth sailing. The other outdoor example for me is Jeep. This is a little simpler. I love getting outdoors again, and Jeeps are an easy way to do that. In addition to the apps and the videos that Jeep provides, though, I think one of the coolest things about Jeep is there's such a strong community. And I think as we think about our B2B spaces, a lot of the successful players in this space are able to kind of nurture and curate their own communities, where obviously the brand is a participant in providing content and useful information, but also where a lot of the users like to help each other and be part of it.
Okay, so I think that if we look at our own experience by working with products here or like apps on our phone, there are like few things that really work. I really like the choose your own adventure, and I think that we do see that when you incorporate it into your actual B2B implementation process, that this could really help with engagement and the completion and the time to value that it can raise, and obviously the personalization and make it fun and make it easy. So we will cover that as well. So both of you work in super successful and advanced organizations. Have you cracked the code of digital onboarding? Doug, maybe let's start with you this time.
Not at all. I think it's a journey, at least in my experience. It's a journey, and a lot of us are on this together. As I talk to peers and other companies, we're continually learning, but there's also continual new technologies that's becoming available. A lot of things that are happening with AI right now, and so it's a journey that we're on as we learn, but also as we continue to adapt to all the new technologies and capabilities that are out and available. But as we're through that, it's a digital led, but very much human supported journey as well. So we try to lean in on outbound and inbound motions that leverage all that's available digitally, but then layering in humans from our team and making sure that we're maintaining those connections with our customers.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think there is a code to crack, to be honest. Like everything just continues to evolve, right? And we do our best to balance, what our resources are and what's leading edge now. But if we're not treating it iteratively, if we're not treating it with getting in the data from our customers, from their success, from their outcomes on all of this, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So I think maybe the code there is no code, and we all kind of struggle with this, but doing your best and setting yourself up for success by continuously iterating on your process is really what's going to help you kind of crack the proverbial code.
I could actually, even in product, I'm in charge of the product here at EverAfter, and I think that we can never crack the code, right? Because there is always new lines of code that we need to write and we need to define. So I think maybe that's the code of digital onboarding. We need to start with something like with an MVP, and then we should iterate, and then we should always think about how we could improve the code or add new lines of code or to support additional elements. So I think that I agree. I do think that if we will compare the expectations that customers have today in 2025 versus what they have in 2020 or in 2015, customers expect to have they expect to have a digital experience, but they have few expectations out of this digital onboarding experience. So from your perspective, what modern customers expect when they start their journey with you or in general?
Yeah, I think that looks like, for me at least, is expertise. They expect you to understand who you are and what you do, but also who they are and why they bought. And marrying those couple of things together. Now, I know everyone likes to think that their use case is very unique to themselves, but this is scalable, right? So I think understanding that your customer has the expectation that you are the expert, not only in your solution, but in the industry, and how to get to the place of outcomes that you've promised during the sales process. So I think that level of expertise and the respect of what you've sold them and delivering upon it is that highest expectation that they have. And if you fail at that, doesn't matter anything else below it on that expectation list, you've potentially already lost a customer.
But would you say that this is the expectation from onboarding in general, or from a digital onboarding specifically?
I think it's onboarding in general, but I think what customers really enjoy about the digital processes is at their pace, and the expertise is provided, right? So I could spin up a 3-month-long onboarding process that's super hand-holding and super complex, but it's not repeatable, it's not scalable. And at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, it slows time to value. When we're able to capture in this digital way the best of the best practices from our customers and our intended customer journeys, having that expertise level that says, if you follow this digital journey, you are going to get the outcomes that we've promised. If you follow our lead, you will have the outcomes as promised. And I think it's incredibly achievable given, the advances that we've made in technology to do that and have it be digital for not only small and medium businesses or startups, but also all the way up through the enterprise. So don't count it out. Don't think it's just for scaled success here, y'all. It is something that runs the gamut.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Doug, what do you think?
I love that. When I joined Bill, I spent the first month just talking to a lot of customers. And one of the consistent things that they really expected from Bill, and I think this really applies to all companies that we work with, is they want it to just be easy. And to Tara's point, on their schedule, not ours. Right. And so easy, making it as personalized and on demand. And I know we use the word personalized, but I think, whether you have hundreds or hundreds of thousands of customers, a big job that we have as we think about the customer journey is thinking about the jobs to be done that our customers are looking to achieve. To Tara's point about what are those results they're looking for. Because really, whether it's, again, hundreds or hundreds of thousands, you can usually trim it down to 5 or maybe 10 typical jobs that they're trying to get done with your product. And so if you can then solve for what are those 5 to 10 and create the journey that's optimized for those, then customers have that personalized experience, but you're not having to go out and create thousands of different automation tracks. And so it's really important, I think, that we understand our customers, but we try and make it as easy as we can and try and make it on their schedule, not ours.
I really agree. I think that the expertise part is something that worth like focusing on, because we need to find like magical ways to show our expertise without actually meeting our customers on a weekly basis or on a daily basis or on a bi-weekly basis. We need to find a digital way to curate all of our best practices. And I think it's like a Venn diagram where we know a lot about our product and about how we can solve different problems, and they know everything about like their needs and their challenges. And then like how we can nail down the onboarding is to focus on this like overlapping part where they could achieve their outcomes if they will follow our lead based on our expertise to support their business outcomes. So I think it's like a nice thing that worth thinking, and it is challenging to see how we could actually do it in a digital way. I also completely agree that it doesn't have to be only for your scale touch. And I think that everyone wins when there are like things that could be digitized, and it's not like either or all or nothing. As Doug, as you mentioned, it's not digital only. We could actually combine between them and maybe take some more easy to do or quick wins and digitize them and focus more on like the strategic conversations with customers if this is not like a pure scale motion. What we see that is really successful towards like a successful digital or a part of the expectation is that choose your own adventure. And we saw like a really nice flow that really works with a lot of our customers, that the first step would be to ask customers, hey, dear customers, what are your goals? And Doug, as you mentioned, eventually each company knows like, I don't know, 5, 8, 10 different solutions or different business outcomes that they can provide. So by asking the customer, hey, I know that we've talked about all of these potential use cases or challenges, what do you want to focus on to begin with? And then based on their input, that could actually be tracked back to the CRM, and you could create a flywheel to train your marketing team on that and all of that. You could actually provide them like a snippets and a consumable information based on their outcomes to lead them as fast as possible to this success.
Yeah,
I
agree.
don't know if you have
There are kind of two sides to that. There absolutely is listening to customers to take their input and influence in terms of like how they want to consume content and what works for them. But on the flip side, I also think, that onboarding time with customers typically when they're buying a new piece of software, a new product, they're expecting something to change. They want to get to somewhere and they know they need to do something different to get there, right? And so I do think there's the other side of that coin, which is it's really on us to be that expert, to be able to coach them back and say, okay, we have designed this to work with how you want to consume and how your schedule works and all those types of things. But the what you need to do to get to that result is very much why they hired us to do that job and help them along that path.
Tara, anything that you'd like to add on that?
I think Doug has it right there. I think you both came to it, right? Is that there is that helping them find their way and giving them the resources. And quite frankly, like this is such a big undertaking at times, and particularly when you're starting out this process, but it doesn't all have to be done at once, right? And the customer sometimes doesn't want to have it done all at once, right? We want to start with those basics. So I think those building blocks, and anyone who's on the call now knows the 4 or 5 things that you could do to immediately see value for your customers as a CSM and why they're so critical at that jumping off point. You can iterate from there, but when you're launching an onboarding with at least that MVP, it's great.
Okay. So we talked about that customers expect to have like a very simple and easy experience. They would like to be a part of like the building of that, which is like it needs to be personalized to their challenges. And if they can take a part on building that based on their goals, it actually helps that as well. I'd like also to add on that it needs to be super actionable. And I think that, for example, the problem with purely like email onboarding flows is just it got lost in the it gets lost in the inbox, and then if you don't act on that immediately, it's also might not be the best the best method. What prevents or what is challenging for us as businesses when we try to digitize our onboarding processes? So if you can share a bit about the challenges and like the most concerning or problematic aspects of that.
I think it's
Doug, would you like to? Yes.
Yeah, it's for me, it's who's going to do it? Where do we start? Do we have the documentation? Kind of, you can force your way through an onboarding because you need to. But when you realize that if you prioritize getting the programs in place, leveraging the best practices that you have, the most successful customer journeys, and really think to invest in that, the ROI on that time investment and the prioritization of the content and the different things that you have now is huge. You don't have to start looking at a mountain. You can start on flat ground, crawl, walk, run. But really, I think that's a challenge, is that it feels like a massive project to undertake. And I would argue that everybody who is going to be building out one of these processes has what it takes to start right now. And I think the best time to do something was yesterday, but you can start today. So I think right there, resourcing, you have the people, you have the tools, you have the knowledge. It's just about getting it down and prioritizing it. And you'd be amazed, like you said, 10 hours for your customers of saved time for those onboarding processes. Like the time that your people will save focusing on delivering customer outcomes versus every step of the process of onboarding with them will be huge, and it'll be incredible ROI for your company. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, prioritize it and have those resources.
That's so great. Yeah, doing more with less is a common phrase there. And it's always a challenge. I'll just add to that. I think a lot of us really have to start with, like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And so even though there's this big umbrella of onboarding, there's a lot that can happen in the onboarding phase with customers. And so, do you have, as you're looking at your business, and it's going to be different for every business, do you have a challenge where maybe customers are signing up but not starting? They're not actually using the product, and or maybe they started but then they didn't actually get through the adoption curve. And so there's an adoption challenge there. Maybe it's an expansion. Maybe your business has multiple products and you need to be doing more with cross-sell during that early stage with a customer, and you're just not seeing that kind of uptake. And so there could be challenges there. It could just be a retention problem that you need to solve for. And you're seeing, hey, my first 90 days, I'm losing X number of my customers. We need to understand what's going on. The way you solve each of those is going to be different. And so there's not really one solution that's going to solve for all those problems. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is just finding out, like, what's the challenge, or the biggest challenge anyway, that you're trying to solve for as leaders. And then who owns that challenge is going to be the next fun one, right? It's, is it someone here on the call in customer success? Is it Shahar? You're coming from product, right? Does product own the challenge? Does marketing? There's so many players when we start to think about digital-led customer experiences. So many players within the business that really kind of touch on that. And so there's a lot of coordination that's going to be needed to make sure that you're not just bombarding customers with emails from multiple teams and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think a challenge of, like, where do you get started? What is that MVP? Something that you can do very quickly, ideally with a minimal investment, to kind of prove out that you're onto something. I think about a lot of one-way doors versus two-way doors there. One-way doors mean typically your bigger investments, there's no going back, versus a two-way door is something that hopefully you can do kind of quick and scrappy, but you can test in and see if you've got traction. And if you don't, you can always go back through the door and try a different one, right? And so be thinking about what problem are you solving, who really owns that, and how you're going to coordinate, and then what kind of investments are needed to get to a quick answer.
I also think that, like, as humans, we tend to complicate stuff when they're not necessarily needed. So I think that if we almost look at that like as building an MVP, then we can think, okay, how we could create like first quick wins on our digital onboarding program. And it doesn't have to be to capture all of the different models that we have in the product, or all of the different product lines that we have. We can start with something, we can test it, we can build something that will that will help us to measure it and iterate on that. And as we go, we could always add additional programs or additional product lines to that. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing from day one. That actually would be my recommendation. I see that we have some questions here on the chat. So Adi asks, what would be the best way to ask for customer goals and outcomes? So Tara and Doug, have you ever faced with this with this problem in a digital way? I think that's like should be the focus when we don't really speak with this with the customers.
I'll start. This isn't very digital, but I like to start with qualitative. I talk to customers. If I need more data, I'll do a quantitative follow-up with a survey. Surveys are easy to do in a digital format. But I like to start by just having conversations because I learn so much. Customers are willing to share a lot just through conversation. And that then helps me to figure out what are the right questions that I want to put into a survey if I want to get more data later. So I typically lean in on starting with conversations and more of the qualitative. I also talk to my sales partners, right, on the front end, like, hey, when you're pitching this product to customers, what's resonating with them? Why are they signing up? And make sure that I really understand the job to be done that customers are coming in to solve.
Yeah, I think to build on that, part of the sales process, whether it is a digital sales process or a named sales process, is capturing that data. There is no place in this world where you should be having digital sales without capturing their industry, what's important to them. You don't want to do a million pre-sales questions, but we certainly want to capture that. And then we can use that information to digitize the follow-up to request that information, right? So we think this is the industry, or this is the size of the company. Here is what they purchase us for. Like, what are the main reasons they purchased us for? Put that all together in that choose your own adventure and have that automated outreach to them, which could be a survey or it could be kind of long form, asking them what's most important to them. But I also think as we do that onboarding process and we're implementing, we're going to learn more about it. We can make assumptions based on what's important to them and what their goals and outcomes are, but we can also validate that as part of that onboarding process, particularly when it's digital. Would you agree that based on your industry, and this is probably a very less UX question, but think about it a little bit more eloquently when you write it down. Would you agree that based on X, Y, and Z, things that are markers of your business, these 4 things are important to you, or these 2 things are important to you? Which one's higher, which one's lower, or ranking the different things? And that allows you to get incredible insights on why they purchased and what good looks like for them and what successful onboarding will be for them.
I have maybe an example here. So this is some of the things that we see that is really working in terms of capturing goals. So just going to share my demo account. So this is just an example of how using something that is very engaging could actually help you to track the goals and also immediately allow customers to choose their own adventure. So this is just like, as I mentioned, this is just a demo. This is my cat. So imagine that you just now starting onboarding this made up company called Funnel Pro. So the first thing that you ask your customers, hey, submit your goals. And we already chose the most common goals that we have. And you could actually incorporate some visual elements that could make them more engaged. So let's say that my goals are to improve lead conversion and nurturing. I submit my goals, we track it in our CRM, so we know exactly what customers are interested. And then based on that, we create their own journey. So they need to complete now a few tasks, and then they will get additional set of tasks. And then so this could actually something that we see that is really, really working. Really just to ask customers in a way that will help you to capture it and immediately, based on the input they have, to return you to give them the recommendations. By the way, you also mentioned who should own this stuff. I actually just posted, and I will share it here on the chat. I just posted like 4 hours ago that actually product should own and parts of the features for change management. So if someone is interested, so I think that's a really interesting concept that the product team should also try to build or to add into the product things that could help in that. Okay, So we talked about the challenges, we talked about our customer needs. Let's talk about how we could actually solve that. And if you can share, and I know that we talked a bit on that during the first part, but if you can share some of the tools or techniques that you've developed or that you saw that is working to make useful onboarding or successful digital onboarding.
Yeah, I'll start. We started very small, and it was a lot of automated emails inviting customers to Zoom style webinars, right? It's similar to this forum here, right? So I think with a lot of this, your slide earlier was great, but sometimes slides that show all the different components can be overwhelming. So we just started small emails with Zoom style webinars, and then we tested into it. Like I said earlier, this is a journey for all of us. We tested different types of content. We tested different lengths of webinars. We recorded webinars, made them available after, and we were kind of looking to see like live attendance versus on demand. To Tara's point, you need a lot of good data as you're testing through all this. And so the more insight you can get will continue to help guide your path as you hone that. We eventually built that into more of an onboarding curriculum that had different profiles for different types of users, but we didn't start with that, right? We just started with, let's just send out some emails to new customers and invite them to this Zoom style webinar, and then we'll learn as we go and take the feedback along the way.
I love the webinar aspect of that because you need to have that human touch as part of this as well. You need to be involved there too. Like, you're able to identify risks, potential risks from your customer base with those webinars and things like that. So just because we're going digital doesn't necessarily mean that we're taking the human out of it. We're just focusing the humans on the right things, the important, complex things that perhaps require that nuance, require that humanity behind it. I love those strategies. I take maybe a bit of a different approach to it, where I like to look at, and I do want to call out in the chat, Christiana made a point to say, let's separate out implementation and onboarding. Let's make that divide. I think that they are both a critical portion of the overall onboarding, right? But with that, we need to be not only workflow mapping, which is that implementation, it's how are we setting them up for success, but also the customer journey mapping. So how are we moving from, I have sought out to buy a solution to this set of problems. I've now purchased it. I'm getting on board. I'm setting it up. I'm implementing it, but I'm being educated. I am educating myself. I am using resources. That whole journey in itself is incredibly important. And customer journey mapping can be as complex or as simple as you'd like, right? I would agree with Doug, start simple. What is within our realm of control right now and the possibility with our resources, but then continue to iterate on that and be aggressive, be innovative, really make sure that you're thinking about your customer's experience. You're thinking about your product capabilities as well. We can't wish that things will work the way that we want them to work. But do that feedback loop. Push them through the journeys that you want them to make, curate it for them, find the gaps, use the data, iterate on top of it. That iteration could come through processes in customer success and with this digital onboarding journey. But there's also going to be, and Shakar, I'm very sorry for your product folks, stuff that we need to improve in the product that potentially stand as roadblocks to successful adoption and onboarding and implementation. So yeah, I think journey mapping and workflow mapping, both kind of in the same vein, are critically important as we get started and will help you become successful.
I also think that it's important maybe to identify low-hanging fruits, that like things that are super that would be super easy to automate or to digitize and will provide a big like a value, whether it would be preparation towards our kickoff meeting. So even if we are doing a kickoff meeting, maybe there are like few things that we can just like list with a bit like a very dynamic checklist that we can do, so customers could actually start even before they go with us. And I agree, and I think that this is part of the Salesforce example that I mentioned earlier, that by saving the time for technical stuff, they were able to give a lot of like more solution hours to their customers and strategic conversations to the customers. I would also add maybe to find ways that we leverage. I mean, all of the apps are leveraging, and we leverage when we build products are those UX elements that could actually help us to make our customers act in a way that they will not feel like that we force them to do so. And I'm actually putting here on the chat like a cheat sheet that we created with like 40 different UX elements that you could actually use, whether with the like UX elements such as the progress effect or the IKEA effect or sequencing, and how we actually take a look at like very complex process and very complex product plan, and how we can break it down to something that customers, even without us speaking with them, could follow. Okay, so we are almost on time, and I'd like to ask you that if someone from this audience is convinced and would like to start tomorrow to build their own digital onboarding, what's the best shortcut that we can give them? Tara, maybe let's start with you.
Sure, yeah. Know your customer. Know your customer, know who they are, know why they're buying. Start small, gather their feedback, iterate. Rome was not built in a day. You use solutions like EverAfter and things like that, and they make it way easier. But just know your customer, have the research, know your product, and start small. That's there's no code to be broken, right? Rome was not built in a day. That's not the expectation. Start small, know your customer, and you'll be great. And you'll be on the path to incredible digital onboarding.
I'd echo that. But years ago, a mentor once told me, "Hey, Doug, you need to get some more speeding tickets." And so, absolutely know your customer, start small, do all those things. Also, just be prepared and be comfortable if you get a speeding ticket along the way, just because you're moving so fast, you're trying to solve problems. And so, be ready for it. As long as you're doing right by the customer and by your companies, a speeding ticket here and there, it can always be corrected and fixed. But just move fast and have fun along the way.
I love the speeding ticket analogy. I will use it. Thank you. Okay. That was super interesting discussion. If someone from here on the participant, if you have any questions, you can write it down on the chat. You will get a recording for that. Yeah, I would echo that. Know your customer or find ways to learn your customers, because if you don't have any visibility to what they're doing on what are their goals, on why they purchase your product, then you're blind. And when we are blind, it's very difficult for us to pave the way and the journey for our customers. So that's I really think that something that worth defining. Okay, so thank you all for joining. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Doug. Oh, I see that we have another question. How would you increase customer interaction with digital onboarding? That's a really, really great question. Do you have any thoughts, Doug or Tara?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a lot of what you learn as you try things. And so whether you're sending automated emails, you can experiment. For example, try different subject lines and do your A/B testing, track your results, see which one do you get higher open and click-through rates with. Try different types of content, different layouts in your emails, right? This goes, Shahar, you just shared the UX tips. That was great. I think you learn a lot as you go, and just be thinking about everything you do. Maybe it's the title of your webinar. Again, we can think content. You can think about, for example, we tried one presenter in a webinar versus having a live presenter with someone managing the chats. Try different things, but each time just be A/B testing it intentionally so that you can track the results, because there's no one size fits all here where it's, one solution is going to be the right thing for all of your customers. Again, I've been in very different environments, having worked in enterprise software with very large customers, all the way through, working with some small businesses now. And so they need different things. So in terms of increasing customer interaction, I would just say try things, but be intentional and track the results so that when you make the next decision, you're making one that's going to move the needle in the right direction.
Yeah, I'd stand to agree everything Doug just said. And I'd add, you know, putting that feedback loop into the process. So toward the end, or even a month or so after that overall onboarding process, getting back out there, either automated or directly with your customers to hear their feedback. What went well, what didn't? Look at specific case studies as well, potentially. Do a case study on someone who is wildly successful. Do a case study on someone who was absolutely not. Where did we fail them? Where did we succeed here? Was it based on what the customer was doing themselves and their own kind of challenges, or was it us? Because you'll find a mix of it's a customer issue or it's an us problem. And most of the time, both of those are addressable by making these small changes. So everything that Doug said, plus an effective feedback loop directly with the customers themselves.
I will just add on top of that we need to remember that our customers are not our project managers. So even if we have a really robust implementation process that we need them to follow, we need to really think how we make it super digestible and like clear and actionable, that speaks their language and their pains. So even if eventually each customer needs to take the same path, the language that we use or the case studies that we share that can iterate their goals could really help them to understand, okay, they are the expert and they understand my challenges, so why shouldn't I do that? And it's very easy and clear and engaging and personalized for me. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Doug. I really appreciate you joining us and share with us from your wisdom. Thank you for the audience. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that you can reach out to Tara and Doug and myself. And looking forward to having more discussions.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks to EverAfter for having me. Have a great one, y'all.
This was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.